The reception hall glittered with crystal chandeliers and champagne flutes as my sister Catherine's wedding celebration reached its peak. I stood near the dessert table, nursing a glass of sparkling water, watching my family work the room with practiced ease. Every few minutes, someone would glance my way with a mixture of pity and embarrassment, as if my mere presence was a social liability they had to manage. "That's Alexandra," I heard my Aunt Patricia whisper to a woman in an expensive pearl necklace. "Catherine's younger sister. Such a shame she couldn't make anything of herself. The family's tried everything, but some people just don't have ambition." I took another sip of water and checked my phone. 11:47 p.m. The Wall Street Journal Sunday edition went live online at midnight. My publicist had confirmed the embargo lift time 3 days ago. 13 minutes until the article published. Catherine appeared at my elbow, radiant in her custom wedding gown. Her smile was tight around the edges as she guided me slightly away from the main cluster of guests. "Alex, could you maybe stay near the back for the rest of the evening?" Her tone was apologetic but firm. "Richard's parents are very traditional, very accomplished. His father is a federal judge, his mother is a hospital administrator. They're asking questions about you and it's just awkward." "Awkward," I repeated neutrally. "You know what I mean." Catherine glanced over her shoulder at her new in-laws, who were indeed watching us with poorly concealed curiosity. "They asked what you do and I didn't know what to say. You're 26 and you don't have a real job, you don't have an apartment, you barely own anything. It looks bad for the family." "I see. Mom suggested I tell people you're taking time to find yourself," Catherine continued, lowering her voice. "But Richard's mother is very practical. She doesn't understand finding yourself as a career choice. So I just said you were between opportunities. That sounds better than unemployed, right?" I smiled slightly. "Much better. Don't be like that." Catherine's expression shifted to frustration. "You could have tried harder, Alex. You have a degree from a good school. Dad offered to get you an interview at his firm. Uncle James said he could find you something in marketing. But you turned down every opportunity and now here we are at my wedding, and I have to explain why my little sister is a professional failure." "Is that what you told them?" I asked. "That I'm a professional failure?" Catherine had the grace to look uncomfortable. "I said you hadn't found your path yet. But yes, Richard's family is very success-oriented. They wanted to know about everyone's accomplishments. David just made vice president at his investment bank. Cousin Michelle is a partner at her consulting firm. And you're between jobs," I supplied. "Exactly." Catherine looked relieved that I understood. "So if you could just keep a low profile for the rest of the night, that would really help. Maybe leave before the after party? Richard's colleagues are all coming and they're all very successful." She swept away before I could respond, immediately resuming her role as the perfect bride, laughing at someone's joke with practiced charm. I checked my phone again. 11:51 p.m. 9 minutes. My mother materialized beside me, elegant in her mother-of-the-bride dress. "Alexandra, sweetheart, why are you hiding over here?" Her voice carried that particular tone of cheerful disappointment she'd perfected over the past few years. "Come meet some of Catherine's new family. Though perhaps don't mention the job situation. We're telling people you're exploring your options." "Exploring my options," I echoed. "That's creative." "Well, what should we say?" Mom's smile faltered. "That you've been unemployed for 3 years? That you spend all your time traveling to who knows where, doing who knows what? That would be honest, but it's not exactly impressive dinner conversation." "I suppose not. Your father and I have been very patient," Mom continued. "We supported you through college, we gave you time to figure out what you wanted. But at some point, darling, you need to actually do something. Look at Catherine, she's a senior marketing director at a Fortune 500 company. Look at your cousins, your friends from school. They all have careers, apartments, lives. What do you have?" I took another sip of water and didn't answer. Mom sighed. "Richard's parents asked about you. His father wanted to know what field you were in. I said you were in business development, which sounds respectable enough, but then his mother asked which company and I had to change the subject. It was mortifying, Alexandra. At my own daughter's wedding." "I'm sorry you were mortified," I said quietly. "I just don't understand what happened to you," Mom said, her voice dropping to a more genuine tone of concern. "You were so bright in school. Such potential. And now you're 26 years old with nothing to show for it. No career, no prospects, no stability. What are you going to do with your life? 11:54 p.m. 6 minutes. I should probably get some air, I said, moving toward the reception hall's terrace doors. Don't disappear, Mom called after me. We're cutting the cake soon and Catherine wants family photos. Try to smile and look successful at least for the pictures. The terrace was blessedly quiet, overlooking the venue's manicured gardens. City lights twinkled in the distance. I leaned against the stone balustrade and opened my phone's browser, navigating to the Wall Street Journal's website. The current front page showed yesterday's headlines. In 6 minutes that would change. Behind me I heard the terrace doors open. My father stepped out, loosening his bow tie slightly. He spotted me and his expression shifted to that particular blend of disappointment and resignation I'd grown accustomed to. Your mother sent me to find you, he said, joining me at the railing. She's worried you're going to leave early and make Catherine upset. I wouldn't want to upset Catherine on her special day, I said. Dad was quiet for a moment, staring out at the garden. You know, when you were younger I thought you'd be the one we'd be celebrating like this. You were always the smartest one. The most driven. I thought you'd take the business world by storm. Things don't always work out the way we expect. No, he agreed. They don't. But Alex, this isn't about expectations anymore. This is about basic responsibility. You're living off savings from a college graduation gift, staying in hostels and cheap hotels, doing God knows what with your time. That's not a life. That's prolonged adolescence. I checked my phone. 11:57 p.m. 3 minutes. I've tried to be supportive, Dad continued. I've tried to give you space to figure things out. But tonight, standing in that reception hall with all those accomplished people, having to explain that my youngest daughter is essentially unemployed and directionless. It's hard, Alex. It reflects on all of us. I understand. Do you? His voice gained an edge. Because from where I'm standing it looks like you don't care. You show up to your sister's wedding in an off-the-rack dress, no date, no career to speak of, and you act like everything's fine. It's not fine. You're 26 years old and you're wasting your life. The terrace doors opened again. This time it was Catherine, followed by Richard and his parents. Catherine looked annoyed to find me out here. There you are, she said. We're taking family photos. Alex, can you at least try to look presentable? She turned to Richard's parents with an apologetic smile. I'm so sorry. My sister isn't great at following social cues. Richard's father, the federal judge, regarded me with polite curiosity. Catherine mentioned you're in business development? What industry? Before I could answer, Catherine jumped in. She's actually between positions right now. Exploring opportunities. I see, the judge said, his tone neutral but his eyes reflecting exactly what he thought of someone who was exploring opportunities at 26. Richard's mother, the hospital administrator, smiled with practiced sympathy. That must be challenging. The job market is so competitive these days. Have you considered going back to school? Sometimes additional credentials can help. I have considered it, I said politely. 11:59 p.m. 1 minute. Well, I'm sure you'll find something eventually, Richard's mother said with the kind of encouragement people give to lost causes. Catherine told us you've been traveling quite a bit? That must be nice, having the freedom to explore before settling down into a career. It's been very educational, I agreed. Catherine shot me a warning look. We should really get back inside for those photos. My phone buzzed in my hand. I glanced at the screen. 12 a.m. The Wall Street Journal's website refreshed. The new front page loaded. The main headline appeared in large, bold text. The Shadow Billionaire. How a 26-year-old built a tech empire in secret. Below it, a professional photograph I'd sat for 2 weeks ago. Below that, the subheadline, Alexandra Chen's stealth startup revolutionizes cybersecurity, valued at $3.2 billion in latest funding round. I looked up from my phone to find 6 pairs of eyes staring at me expectantly, waiting for me to follow them back inside for photographs where I would smile and try to look successful despite being the family disappointment. Actually, I said calmly, there's something you all should probably see. I held out my phone, showing them the Wall Street Journal's front page. My photograph stared back at them from the screen. For a long moment nobody moved. Nobody spoke. They simply stared at the phone, then at me, then back at the phone, as if their brains couldn't quite process the connection between the two images. Catherine found her voice first. Is that a joke? Is this photoshopped? It's the Wall Street Journal, I said. They don't Photoshop their front page stories. Dad took the phone from my hand with trembling fingers. His eyes scanned the article, moving faster and faster as he read. The color drained from his face. This says. He stopped, swallowed hard, started again. This says you're the founder and CEO of Sentinel Technologies. That you developed a revolutionary AI-driven cybersecurity platform that's now protecting 70% of Fortune 500 companies. 73% as of last month, I corrected gently. We signed 3 new contracts last week. Mom leaned over Dad's shoulder, reading the screen. Her hand went to her mouth. It says your company is worth over $3 billion. Says you're worth. Alexandra, it says your personal net worth is estimated at $1.4 billion. That's conservative, I said. My financial advisors put it closer to $1.6 billion after the last funding round. Complete silence on the terrace. Inside, I could hear the wedding band playing, guests laughing, the clink of champagne glasses. Out here, 6 people stood frozen, trying to reconcile what they'd believed about me with what they were reading on the screen. Richard's father, the judge, was the first to recover. This is from today? This just published. About 2 minutes ago, I confirmed. The embargo lifted at midnight. By tomorrow morning, it'll be in the print edition. CNN is running a segment at 6 a.m. Bloomberg at 7. CNBC is doing a full-hour special tomorrow afternoon. But Catherine's voice was barely a whisper. You said you were traveling. You said you didn't have a job. You let us think. I said I was traveling for work, I corrected. You assumed that meant I was unemployed and backpacking through Europe. I was actually meeting with clients, investors, and strategic partners in 14 countries. And I never said I didn't have a job. You just never asked what my job actually was. You lied to us, Catherine said, her voice rising. I answered every question you asked honestly, I replied. When you asked what I did, I said I worked in technology and security. When you asked why I traveled so much, I said it was for business meetings. You heard what you wanted to hear. Dad was still scrolling through the article, his face growing paler with each paragraph. This says you started the company 4 years ago with $200,000 you raised from angel investors. That you developed the core technology yourself. That you now have 800 employees across 4 continents. 940 employees as of last week, I said. We just opened a new development center in Singapore. Mom's hands were shaking. Why didn't you tell us? Why did you let us believe you were? That you were a failure? I supplied. Because that's what you wanted to believe. It was easier to assume I was directionless than to ask questions about what I was actually doing. Every time I came home, you made jokes about me being unemployed. You told your friends I was finding myself. You introduced me as your daughter who hasn't quite figured things out yet. I stopped correcting you after a while. Richard's mother found her voice. But the way you're dressed, the way you act, you don't look like a billionaire CEO. What does a billionaire CEO look like? I asked, genuinely curious. This is a reception dress I bought because Catherine wanted everyone to wear cocktail attire. I don't generally attend weddings in business suits. And I act like myself, which is apparently disappointing to some people, but it's authentic. Inside the reception hall, I could see guests starting to check their phones. The Wall Street Journal article was beginning to circulate on social media. Within minutes, everyone at the wedding would know. Catherine seemed to realize this at the same moment. Her face went from pale to red. Everyone's going to see this. Everyone's going to know that I told them you were unemployed. That we treated you like a failure, I finished. Yes, they're going to know that. You did this on purpose, Catherine said, anger breaking through her shock. You timed this to drop during my wedding. You're trying to ruin my special day. Your wedding is on Saturday, I said calmly. The Wall Street Journal always releases its Sunday edition at midnight on Saturday. I didn't choose the timing, the editorial calendar did. Though I admit the synchronicity is somewhat poetic. Dad was still holding my phone, still reading, his expression shifting between shock, confusion, and something that might have been shame. You testified before Congress last year. You met with the Secretary of Defense. You've advised the White House on cybersecurity policy. 3 times, I confirmed. Most recently about protecting critical infrastructure from state-sponsored attacks. And you never mentioned it, Mom said. Not once. You came home for Thanksgiving and let us make jokes about you needing to find a real job, and you never said a word. What would you have believed? I asked. If I'd told you at Thanksgiving that I was advising the White House, would you have taken me seriously? Or would you have assumed I was exaggerating, trying to make myself sound more important than I was? Neither of them answered. The terrace doors burst open. My cousin David appeared, phone in hand, eyes wide. Alex? Tell me this isn't real. Tell me you didn't actually. He stopped, seeing everyone's faces. Oh my God. Real. You're actually a billionaire, I finished. Yes, David. I'm actually a billionaire. Behind him, more family members were emerging onto the terrace, all holding phones, all wearing expressions of shock and disbelief. Aunt Patricia, Uncle James, Cousin Michelle. They crowded around, voices overlapping. The Wall Street Journal says, your company is worth billions. You're on the Forbes list. How did we not know? I let them babble, watching the reality sink in. Inside the reception hall, I could see more guests checking their phones, pointing, looking around for me. The news was spreading like wildfire through the wedding. Catherine's wedding planner appeared, looking frazzled. Ms. Chin? There are reporters at the front gate. 3 news crews just arrived. They're asking for Alexandra Chin. Should I call security? That would be my security team, I said. I asked them to stay outside unless I needed them. Let them know everything's fine. The reporters can wait. Your security team, Catherine repeated numbly. I'm worth over $1 billion, I said. My board insisted on proper security after we went public with our Series D funding. There have been threats, kidnapping concerns, the usual complications that come with highly visible wealth. My phone started buzzing continuously with incoming notifications. I took it back from my father and silenced it. I have 43 missed calls, I observed. CNN, NBC, CBS, Fox Business, Bloomberg, Forbes, Fortune, TechCrunch, and about a dozen others. Plus 217 text messages. My publicist is probably having a heart attack right now. I told her I'd be unavailable during my sister's wedding, but I don't think she anticipated this level of immediate response. Your publicist, Mom echoed faintly. Margaret Hayes, formerly VP of Communications at Tesla. She's very good. Expensive but worth it. I glanced at my phone again. She's texted me 14 times in the past 3 minutes. Apparently the article is trending #1 worldwide on social media. The hashtag #ShadowBillionaire is already viral. Uncle James stepped forward, his earlier condescension replaced by calculating interest. Alex, sweetheart, we should talk. I have some investment opportunities that might interest someone with your kind of capital. No, I said simply. But you haven't even heard. No, I repeated. I have a team of financial advisors who handle investment decisions based on rigorous analysis and strategic planning. I don't make billion-dollar decisions at family weddings based on pitches from relatives who called me directionless 3 hours ago. He flinched like I'd slapped him. Aunt Patricia tried a different approach, her voice dripping with sudden warmth. Alexandra, darling, I had no idea you were doing such important work. If I'd known, I would have been so supportive. You must tell us all about it. How did you get started? What inspired you? You asked me about my work at Christmas, I said. I told you I was developing cybersecurity software. You laughed and said that sounded like something teenagers do in their basements. So I stopped explaining. Her smile froze. Inside, the band had stopped playing. The wedding guests were clustering near the terrace doors, phones out, trying to get a glimpse of the suddenly famous family member. I could hear whispers, see pointing fingers. Catherine stood in the center of the terrace, still in her wedding gown, tears starting to stream down her face. You ruined it, she whispered. This was supposed to be my day. My moment. And you made it about you. I didn't make it about anything, I said. The Wall Street Journal published a major business story on its regular schedule. That's not something I controlled. But everyone's going to remember this wedding as the night your sister turned out to be a secret billionaire, Catherine said, her voice breaking. Not as my special day. As the night you revealed you were better than all of us. I'm not better than anyone, I said quietly. I'm just successful at something you didn't bother to ask about. Richard stepped forward, putting a protective arm around Catherine. His earlier friendly demeanor had vanished, replaced by something harder. I think you should leave. You've caused enough disruption. I was planning to leave anyway, I said. After the family photos Catherine insisted on. But under the circumstances, I don't think those will be happening. No, Catherine said bitterly. They won't. Get out, Alex. Go back to your billion-dollar company and your secret life and leave us alone. I nodded slowly. Hey. Congratulations on your marriage, Catherine. I hope it's everything you dreamed of. I walked toward the terrace doors. The crowd of guests parted like water, everyone staring, phones still recording. I could imagine the social media posts already being crafted. Was at a wedding when we discovered one of the guests was a secret billionaire. My father's voice stopped me at the doors. Alexandra. Wait. I turned. He stood at the center of the terrace, still holding my phone displaying the Wall Street Journal article, looking 10 years older than he had an hour ago. I'm sorry, he said. We're sorry. We should have believed in you. We should have asked more questions. We should have. He trailed off, unable to find the words. You should have treated me like I mattered even when you thought I was unsuccessful, I said. That's what you should have done. But you didn't. You measured my worth by your definition of success. And when I didn't meet it, you decided I was worth less than the rest of the family. That's not fair, Mom protested. We were trying to motivate you. You were trying to shame me into conforming to what you thought my life should look like, I interrupted. There's a difference. Motivation comes from belief. What you gave me was disappointment dressed up as concern. I opened the terrace doors. Outside, I could see my security team moving into position. The black SUVs were pulling up to the front entrance. News vans lined the street beyond the venue gates. The thing about being dismissed and underestimated, I said, addressing the entire family gathered on that terrace, is that it teaches you who people really are when you have nothing they want. Now that you know I have something you want, money, connections, success, you'll all suddenly remember that you always believed in me, that you always saw my potential, that you were always supportive. I met my father's eyes. But I'll remember tonight. I'll remember that when you thought I was nobody, you treated me like I was nobody. And that tells me everything I need to know about what your support is worth. I walked through the reception hall. Guests pressed back against the walls, watching me pass. Some tried to speak. Alexandra, wait, I wanted to talk about. But I kept walking. At the front entrance, Marcus, my head of security, was waiting with two of his team. Miss Chen. We have a situation. Multiple news crews, approximately 50+ photographers and a crowd of onlookers. We can take you out the back service entrance if you prefer to avoid them. No, I said. I'll go out the front. Are you sure? It's going to be chaotic. Let them see me, I said. Let them get their photos. The article's already out. There's no point in hiding. Marcus nodded and spoke into his radio. Primary is moving to front exit. Everyone in position. The doors opened and I stepped into a wall of camera flashes and shouted questions. Miss Chen, how does it feel to be exposed as a billionaire? Miss Chen, did your family really not know about your company? Miss Chen, can you comment on reports that you're the youngest female tech billionaire? Miss Chen, is it true you started your company in a garage? I paused at the top of the steps, security forming a protective semicircle around me. Behind me I could see wedding guests crowding the windows, filming on their phones. Catherine's special day had indeed become about something else entirely. I'll make one statement, I said, my voice cutting through the chaos. The reporters fell silent, cameras focusing. I built my company over 4 years through hard work, innovative technology, and an exceptional team. I chose to keep my success private because I valued my privacy and wanted to focus on the work rather than the publicity. The Wall Street Journal article reveals details about my company and my journey. That's all I have to say tonight. Thank you. But Miss Chen, what about your family? That's all I have to say tonight, I repeated firmly. Marcus guided me to the waiting SUV. I slid into the back seat and the door closed, muffling the shouts and camera clicks. The vehicle pulled away from the venue, security car in front, second security car behind. My phone buzzed again. I looked at the screen. Margaret had sent a message. You're trending in 47 countries. CNN wants you live at 6 a.m. Fox Business is offering a primetime special. Forbes wants to move your cover feature to next week's issue. Call me ASAP. Another message, this one from my CFO. Stock market's going to be interesting Monday. Our clients are thrilled about the publicity. Board wants an emergency meeting. Another from my head of HR. We've had 2,400 job applications in the past hour. Our careers website crashed. In a good way. I turned off my phone and leaned back against the seat, watching the city lights blur past the window. Where to, Ms. Chin? The driver asked. Your hotel. The office, I said. I have a feeling Monday is going to be intense. I should prepare. It's after midnight on Saturday, Marcus pointed out. You should rest. I'll rest tomorrow, I said. Tonight I need to think. The SUV headed toward downtown, toward the gleaming high-rise that housed Sentinel Technologies headquarters. My company. My creation. The thing I'd built while my family dismissed me as directionless. My phone buzzed one more time before I could fully shut it down. A text from Catherine. I hate you for this. I stared at the message for a long moment, then replied, I know. I'm sorry it happened at your wedding. But I'm not sorry for my success. I added one more line. I hope someday you'll be proud of me instead of embarrassed by me. But if not, I'll be okay. I don't need your approval anymore. The message delivered. I turned off the phone completely. Through the SUV's window I could see my reflection in the glass. Same person I'd been this morning. Same person I'd been 4 years ago when I'd started this journey. The only thing that had changed was that now everyone else knew what I'd been doing while they weren't paying attention. The SUV pulled into the underground garage of my building. I took the private elevator to the top floor, where my office occupied the entire corner suite. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. My awards and patents lined one wall. Photos with world leaders and industry icons hung on another. This was my real life. The one my family never bothered to ask about. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. Email inbox. 1,847 unread messages. Slack notifications. 492. Calendar requests. 63. Tomorrow I would deal with all of it. The interviews, the publicity, the sudden flood of people who wanted a piece of my story. Tonight, I let myself feel what I'd been holding back on that terrace at Catherine's wedding. Not triumph. Not vindication. Just a quiet, tired sadness that it had come to this. That my family's love and respect had been conditional on their perception of my success. That they'd only valued me once the world told them I was valuable. But also something else. Something stronger. Relief. Relief that I no longer had to pretend. Relief that I could finally stop answering vague questions with vaguer answers. Relief that I'd proven, at least to myself, that I didn't need their belief to succeed. The city stretched out below my windows, millions of lights twinkling in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Catherine's wedding was probably still going, guests gossiping about the dramatic revelation. Somewhere out there, my parents were trying to process how they'd gotten everything so wrong. Somewhere out there, news vans were preparing their morning segments about the shadow billionaire who'd been hiding in plain sight. And here in this office, surrounded by evidence of what I'd built while they weren't watching, I finally let myself acknowledge the truth. I didn't need them to believe in me anymore. I'd learned to believe in myself. And that, in the end, was worth more than all the family approval in the world. My phone, despite being turned off, somehow buzzed one final time. A message that must have been delayed in delivery. From my father. I don't know how to fix this, but I want to try. Please. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I closed the laptop, stood up and walked to the window. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Media scrutiny. Family complications. The inevitable requests for money, for connections, for access. But tonight, I was just a 26-year-old woman who'd built something extraordinary while everyone around her insisted she was building nothing. And finally, the world knew the truth. The question was, would it have been better if my family had believed in me all along? Or was this hard-earned, self-sufficient, independently validated success, somehow more meaningful because I'd achieved it without their faith? I didn't have an answer. But standing in my corner office, looking out over the city I'd conquered while my family thought I was lost, I realized something important. I didn't need an answer. I just needed to keep building. And tomorrow that's exactly what I would do.